Let me know when you share so I can go ahead and
All right,
share.
ladies and gentlemen, we are live with the Front Door Show here. We do this every day at 8 o'clock, the Front Door Show. For more information, obviously, you log on our website, forfantasticevents.com, or the business page for Fantastic Events. Today, I have a great friend, DJ Joker, originally from Chicago. He lives out in California now. And I'm going to let you talk for a bit because while you're talking, I'm going to hold and create the watch party and stuff like that and share it on.
Gotcha. Let me know so I can share it too.
It's
But
on. It's on. We're live. Here we go.
what's going on, everybody? Like Prieto said, Angelo said, my name is Sergio, known as DJ Joker. Basically born and raised in Chicago. Grew up there pretty much my whole life, but moved away when I turned 21 because of the military. From that, came back home after serving for 5 years, came back home for a year and met my wife and moved to California, which is where I'm at now. But DJing was always something that was huge. Well, music in general. My dad was a musician back in the day. He played guitar. As a matter of fact, pretty cool story is, so I'm Guatemalan. And my dad in Guatemala had a friend, a real good friend of his, and they would always go out and play guitar and practice guitar every day. That was like their thing. And now his friend is a big famous star, actually, Ricardo Arjona. So that was a good friend of my dad's and stuff like that. And they grew up as kids and stuff like that. So I thought it was pretty cool. For a long time, they said that he was like a distant uncle, but then it came out that they were just real good friends. Which makes me kind of want to do that, the thing that you do with the ancestry, man, because I definitely want to check out that background, see where all the roots are, because it's amazing with that, man. But yeah, in a nutshell, started DJing. I guess I really started doing it my senior year of high school. Got
What
into
high school?
it.
What high school?
I went to Sullivan High School. So I grew up in the north side.
Okay.
I grew up in the north side of Rogers Park. But then later on, we moved to the northwest side by like Albany Park, Jefferson Park area and stuff like that, like around my sophomore year. But yeah, so I picked it up in my senior year of high school. And like anybody else, I mean, I was just young kid. I used to go out to like the Clark Mall right there and buy these mixtapes. Prieto, you're just one of them, the hot mixes and stuff like that. So back then, right, when there were tapes, there were actually tapes, right? So I always loved the whole idea of mixing and DJing and stuff like that. I was never old enough to go to clubs, right? So I would sit in front of my stereo, the old school stereo, the cassette tape, and record all the mixes that would come out on the weekends, right? Late night B96 would do the mixes late night. You hear Bill, Tim Schomer and Julian Perez and all those guys. And I'm over there just putting my little mixtapes together so I had something to listen to throughout the week when I was back at school. So all that gave me a love for just music in general, right? And then my dad passed away actually when I was in my sophomore year of high school, when I was 16.
Continue talking. Go ahead. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so he passed away when I was like 16. Which actually today marks the day of his passing, which was 26 years ago today. So kind of letting you guys know my age there. So I went on, move forward and stuff like that, like we have to and stuff like that. And things were tough with my mom and things like that. And I used to get sucked up with, I have friends that, did the whole stuff. And, growing up in Rogers Park, you either did sports or you ended up gangbanging or something, right? And a lot of my friends were gangbangers and stuff like that, and had a lot of love for them and stuff like that too. But yeah, so my mom wanted me to get away from that lifestyle. So funny thing is, my senior year of high school, I joined this Latino club, right? And there's a bunch of guys that were and girls that would just do all these dance performances for talent shows and stuff like that. And so we do performance doing salsa, merengue, bachata, and that was my introduction to dancing that kind of music because I was a house and freestyle guy, right? House and freestyle, hip hop, that kind of stuff. But little did I know that these friends would also, mind you, we're in high school, we're senior year high school, so these friends would go out clubbing. So they have friends that, worked at nightclubs and stuff like that were 21 and over clubs that we couldn't get into, but they would go. I didn't know this until I came into the group and joined the club and this and the other. And they were like, hey, You want to come out with us tonight? This, that, we're going to a club. So I didn't even have dress clothes. I didn't know what to wear at a club, nothing, right? So I just put something two and two together and this, that, and the other, and they took me to a club. So we're at the club, and that's where I really fell in love with the whole scene. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm looking at the DJ get down, I'm looking at the dance floor, people dancing, having a good time, and this, that, and the other. I just fell in love with the atmosphere.
Do you remember the club's name or that you went, the first one?
You know what? So there was a couple one. I don't know if they exist, and I don't want to get them in trouble, but I'm older now. One of them, what was it called?
Where was it at? Maybe that would help.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of them was called like Las Vegas or something like that.
La Vega Club.
No, it was in between. I remember it was like around Armitage or Milwaukee area. That kind of, like I say, it was so long. You're talking about 96, 95, right? So,
right.
So yeah, it was called either Las Vegas. I think it was called Las Vegas. It was a small hole-in-the-wall kind of spot and everything like that.
Okay, all right.
And then there was another place that we used to go to by, there used to be a park there by off of Western and Montrose. You know what I'm talking about? Western Montrose, there was a big park there. It was called, I think it's called Wells Park.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So as you can see, it's been a long time since I've been back home. But yeah, so there was another club on the corner. It actually was a restaurant, and they were turning it into a club.
Yes.
So that was the other place.
Did it also become a record store one later on or something like that?
It could have.
I remember it was right. It was a little bit past the park. I want to say a little more north.
It was actually on the corner. So the park was actually on the opposite side of Western. Okay. So I don't know what the other street was, but it was right on the corner. It was like a Colombian place.
Yes, I remember.
So that was the other place that we used to go to and party and stuff like that. But like I said, I fell in love with that. And that's when I got the passion of saying, I want to do this, right? So, I mean, we grew up poor, so I couldn't really afford any of that stuff. I worked at a little video store back in the day when people used like a Blockbuster almost, but it was even smaller, like a small mom and pop place. So anyway, so that's when I realized that I wanted to be a DJ, but couldn't afford to get the stuff. Just kind of one of those things where I was like, all right, I'll never get to hit this point because I could never afford this. Surprisingly so, though, my mom, very influential in my life, she didn't want me going out that much. She didn't want me going out to the street. She didn't want me hanging out with a lot of guys that used to hang out with, because some of them, not the guys that I was in the club with, but I hung out with guys that were also gangbangers and stuff like that. And she didn't want that for me. Mm-hmm. So she would set me down and talk to me. She's like, what would it take for me to keep you home? And I was like, buy me some turntables. So that was actually my answer, right? So funny thing was that the church she used to go to had a guy that was selling some turntables and stuff like that, and they were like the cheapest, like Gemini turntables, like belt driven, like it was just like these cheap Gemini turntables, right? And this little 2-channel mixer and stuff like that. But that's all I wanted. I'm good with that. And they had 2 records, right? One was what was it? One was Fantasy Girl, but not the freestyle version, the house version, right? And the other one was something else, another song. Well, anyway, I played these 2 records for like the first 2 months because that's all I had. I thought I was the next Bad Boy Bill or something, man. I was like jamming out and everything. But then all my money that I would make from this video store will go to records. So I started going to Gramophones, to Just Dance, all these record shops, talking to the DJs, picking their brains, grabbing music and this, that, and the other. I was like at Toys R Us. That was my Toys R Us. And eventually started accumulating my collection of vinyl. Right. But it was just me trying to self-teach myself, right? So after a few months, actually, I started going to my mom's church. I would go to my mom's church and stuff like that. And there was a dude there that became real good friends with me. And he would always tell me about his cousin. He's like, yeah, my cousin, he owns a store. My cousin this, my cousin that. But he never gave me his name until one day I decided, I was like, who's this cousin? Right? And he goes, oh, his name's Party Boy Pete. And I was like, Party Boy Pete. And I was like, and I had his mixtape in my car. And I was like, this guy? Like that, right? So he goes, yeah, you want to go visit him? I was like, yeah, sure. Went to his store. He had the store right there in Division, the music spot. So he had, I think he had just opened the store actually. So he had a store at the music spot, went there, met Pete, and that's really where everything just took off for me. Me and Pete became real tight, real close friends and everything. He basically became my mentor in the whole aspect of DJing, taught me some things, taught me how to do my first mixtape, opened the first doors in me to get into the first club to DJ at and things like that. But basically, in a quick run by, right? That's how I pretty much got started with the whole DJing thing and everything.
So, where did Joker come in? The DJ named Joker. Where did that come in?
So Joker has been a name that's haunted me all my life. I wasn't the perfect student at school. I was kind of a class clown.
Okay.
So everybody would call me Joker. Like a teacher called me Joker because I was a class clown. This started from like the 4th, 5th grade. And then leave elementary school, come into high school, we all wanted to be taggers, right? So I'm thinking of a tagging name. My friends go, why don't you start tagging Joker? Granted, I left the tagging game because I was not a good artist. So, but the name stuck. So got out of high school, wanted to get rid of the name. Like to me, the name was like an insult. It was embarrassing. I thought people looked at me like I was some sort of a clown or whatever, right? Like people couldn't take me serious. So I was like, I want to get rid of this name. So anyway, met Pete, started DJing, and the first club I started DJing at was Hank's. At the time, it was called 2424.
Yeah.
So one night we're there, we're DJing. I still don't have a DJ name. This is already like almost a year in. I still didn't have a DJ name, and I'm over here having a couple of drinks. And you know, Preto, when I used to have my drinks, I used to let loose a little bit more, right? So I grabbed the mic, and I just start cracking all these jokes. Start busting on people, roasting the DJs, roasting the security, and everybody in the club's just having a ball, cracking up, this, that, and the other. So Sticks, another buddy of ours who was a DJ that lived out there in that area, he goes, Sticks, and he's like, I got your DJ name. I was like, what? He goes, Joker. And I was like, all right. So I guess it's Joker. And I just rolled with it. And I just ended up rolling with it. So it was one of those things where yeah, it's just a name that haunted me, but in the end, I embraced it and I just rolled with it.
Right.
That's how I became.
So I remember walking into Pete's store and seeing you there. I remember that. I used to go sell product to Pete's store. One of the spots, obviously. So how old are you when you were doing this with Hanks and what there was? You were already past high school, right? You were already
in high school. Yeah, I was done with high school. I think when I met Pete, I was about to turn 19.
Okay.
I was about to turn 19. When I started doing Hanks, I was already 19 years old, doing that place and stuff like that. And again, I couldn't get into the 21 and over spot, so I was one of those things that were. I DJ Hanks, and then I'd go home, and Pete and everybody else would go party on somewhere else after Hanks closed down, right? Because Hanks used to close down at 2. There were still other places that stayed open until 5 and stuff like that. Right. Then I show up at the music store and stuff like that and practice there or help Pete out at his store. I just wanted to be around the whole atmosphere. I love the whole just hanging out and listening to music, practicing. DJ would show, Pete would show me a few things. He introduced me to a lot of guys. I think I actually met you there at the music spot before we started.
You did. Yeah. You met me there when I walked in there to sell product. So you're 19 years old. What happens next? 19, because you mentioned about going to the Marines, or that's when you went to Marines.
Navy. I was in the Navy, but that didn't happen until I was like 21, actually.
Okay, so what happens from 19 to 21? What happens there?
So I'm doing the whole club scene. I'm doing Hanks. Eventually, Hank shuts down, and then Pete and Boom opened up another place called Deja Vu right there off of Fullerton, and I think it was Fullerton West. I want to say Western, but I think I'm wrong on that. But it was right before the highway.
Okay. So yes.
Yeah, it was a small bar and this and that. So they opened that place up. And then so I started DJing there. But in the midst of me DJing in these places, I also got introduced to like Luis Ramirez and Ziggity and all those guys. And then those guys started asking me if I wanted to DJ at their spots. So I was like, cool. For me, it was like, oh my God, yeah, because that's what I've always wanted to do. So I never actually became a resident DJ anywhere. I was just all over.
Right.
Eventually around they opened up some spots off of Wheat Street and stuff like that. I forgot their names. I think it was called The System at one point. They there, K-Dron at one point, Tequila Nightclub, and those are just a lot of people probably don't even know about the names of these clubs. I think Tequila Nightclub now is a furniture store. It was right across the street from the Mega Mall, right?
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, so I just went all over the place,
When Ziggy, when Leon, when Lewis and Ziggy had you, did they have Polynesian Club at the time? The Polo Club?
Yes, yes, and I actually went there too. Never to DJ though. When they had the Polo Club, that was another club that I found out was an 18 and over club that I could actually go to. So before I actually started DJing and everything, I would go there as well with friends and stuff like that. And that's where I heard Bad Boy Bill mixing live, because they used to have a lot of the B96 guys go out there and stuff like that. And for me, Bill was one of like those idols for me. I always bought his house mixes and stuff like that. He would be the one that I would tune in on the radio on the weekends to try to listen for his mixes to come on and stuff like that. Because I used to love the way he did his stuff, right? So yeah, but yeah, they were running that place, but I wasn't involved in the scene yet to know who any of these people were.
I was trying to figure out where Ziggy and Ziggy and Lewis were when they hired you. What clubs were they?
That place that I told you about, The System, I think it was called when they first opened. I don't know what it was called later on because that name System changed quick. It was off of Weed Street. It was a big warehouse looking place. The one thing I do remember about the place, they used to have these turntables hanging on bungee cords, which was like super weird to me. And they had a second room where they had the Spanish room and stuff like that.
So you're talking about Circus or the bedroom is what?
It might have been Circus actually.
Yeah, it was called Circus and become the bedroom as well. That was the other name that it was.
Okay, well before that, when they first opened up, it was just this big warehouse and they called it The System. That's what it was called at first. And then Ziggy was running it because I don't think Lewis was there. Ziggy was the only one running it, I think.
Okay.
So I went there. Like I said, I did a lot of like the small, more house club, the clubs that would do more house music and stuff like that. But where I really found my niche was with reggaeton. And like when they were doing Club 2424, there wasn't many people doing reggaeton mixing live because there wasn't a lot of music available. I used to get a lot of that music because I have family members that I'm Guatemalan, but I have a cousin who's Guatemalan, Puerto Rican, and he would put me in tune to a lot of that music. So I had to love it. And then listening to Catracho Man was another guy who I first heard do reggaeton live and stuff like that. I got intrigued by that and I loved the music. So I started collecting a lot of that stuff. And then nobody else was really doing it. And then so when they heard me doing it, they were like, that's what I want you to do. So I stopped doing house music. I stopped doing all the other stuff. And I was just strictly the reggaeton DJ for, I became the reggaeton DJ for Club 2424. Then, Deja Vu, then El Cielo, which is another place that I went to after that. Boom and Lewis actually started running El Cielo nightclub. And I started going there. They had me
you're talking about Louis Molina, right?
Molina, yeah.
Or Med and Lewis, as we know.
Med and Lewis back then, yeah. So I started going there, and then so Pete had stopped doing a lot of promotions for the clubs and stuff like that. So he was just doing his own stuff too and things like that. And then Boom and Med and Lewis were starting this club, El Cielo, and they asked me to come by and stuff like that. But by this time, though, I was already in the military. So what happened was I went into the military at 21. By that time, they were still doing Deja Vu, I think, and they were transitioning. Boom was transitioning from not doing Deja Vu anymore and doing their Cielos full time with Med and Lewis. So I moved. So they closed Deja Vu, and then they opened up El Cielo, and I did El Cielo a little bit. I did when they first opened out. I was doing that for a little bit, and then that's when I joined the military. The whole thing with the military again came down to my mom. Even though I love the atmosphere and I love the whole club life and everything about it and stuff like that at that time, it wasn't good for me. My mom didn't like it. I was always coming home drunk, messing around, the girls, the drugs and all this. So there's a dark side to that, right? And I got sucked into that. So my mom goes, she was in Guatemala for a while. She was out there for like a year and a half while this whole DJing thing was going on. So my mom had no clue what was going on with me out here, except for the fact that I was just this DJ. When she comes back, she sees my mixtapes in the stores. She sees that I'm doing the Puerto Rican festival. She sees that I'm doing the Division Street party. She sees that I'm doing all these clubs. And she goes, I was like, Mom, I'm real popular here. She's like, you're popular, whatever. You know, moms, right? So then she came, she actually saw this. So at first she was excited for me because, you know, she's like, wow, you're doing something with this thing that all I thought you were doing is just making noise in the bedroom, right? And she goes, and so she was proud of me at that aspect, but then she saw the after part of it where I would come home drunk. I would come home stumbling and this, that, and the other. And then, you know, my mom goes, I don't want this life for you. My dad passed away because of alcoholism. So he battled with that and stuff like that. So I was like, okay. And I was a big mama's boy. So what mom said, I did. So I tried to find other alternatives. At the time I had a buddy had just joined the Navy and he goes, dude, why don't you do it? Talked to a recruiter, told him what I was about, gave me a spiel. Next thing you know, I'm in the Navy. So I ended up joining the military and I was there for 5 years. But every time I got put on leave, I come back, DJ at the Cielos because Boom and Metal Lewis, they always welcomed me with open arms and stuff like that. So I'd always go in there and do my thing and stuff like that. But when I joined the military, I actually thought I was done. That's what yesterday, I think yesterday, a couple of days ago, you put how DJ say they retire. And you've seen, I was like, and I put on one of them. Because when I joined the military, I actually thought I was done with DJing. You know, I'm joining the military, the DJ life isn't for me. And it actually was the total opposite. It opened more doors for me because I ended up actually DJing all over the world. I actually ended up DJing in France and Spain and Italy, Croatia, Turkey. Like I was the naval DJ. Like there was no club that I couldn't get into in any country that I went to and I couldn't get up there and do my thing, right? Then every time I Puerto Rico, everywhere. And then I would come back home and then of course Cielo and then there were a couple places here and there that I would do stuff like
Question for you. So were you doing CDs or digital at this time?
By that time it was digital.
Okay, so that's why it was so easy for you to DJ at all these places because you didn't have to carry but a laptop and
all the crazy. No. It was me, a backpack, and 2 CD books. So I'd walk around all these different countries, and it basically I was just my radar, which is the club I'm going to go talk to, you know. And I was over there with my backpack, and this, that, and the other. And it's funny because the shit that I was attached on, all the guys knew me as the DJ, you know. So they would all back me up. Oh, they're like, you want us to drink in your bar? Let him DJ. So that's how they would get me to DJ. So of course, the bar would everybody go into the clubs. There would be lines outside some of the places that I would DJ at because people just wanted to have a good time. They loved the way I did it. And of course, I didn't have to pay for anything at the bar because I'm over there getting drunk too. So like I said, it never, the thing that my mom wanted to stop kind of didn't. It actually just opened it up to more, right? So it kind of backfired a little bit, right? So after my 4th year in the military, so after my 1st year in the military, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. Oh. And so it was a tough battle for her. It was stomach cancer that she had gotten. And by the 4th year that I was in the military, they were telling me, well, you need to get sent back home because, you know, there's nothing else we can do for your mom. The best thing for you to do is spend time with her. Right. So the Navy, which I'm truly, truly grateful for the military because honestly, they did look out for me a lot throughout the whole time and stuff like that. So they set up the transfer and they transferred me back to Chicago. I still had another like 6 months left in my contract because I had just extended. I was supposed to only do 4 years, but I was enjoying it that I extended for another year with the ambition of actually making it a career. Correct. But the whole thing with my mom, I was still kind of on edge with that because I still had my sisters who at the time were, my youngest sister was only 16. My middle sister was about 20. So I was the oldest. So they sent me back home. And then of course, you know, my mom lost her battle and I finished and I did my last year in the Navy in Chicago. So I extended, after I got to Chicago, I extended for another 6 months. and and with the intention of making it a career, making it, but I was trying to get my sisters to come with me in the military to cover them as dependents and all that other stuff. Back then, the internet wasn't as fast as it is now. Everything was still paperwork. So military basically told me, look, you need to go back to Virginia, because that's where I was at. They're like, you need to go back to Virginia. He's like, if you're enlist, we got to send you back to Virginia. I was like, all right, well, then I guess you got my answer. I'm out. So I ended up getting out after doing 5 years and a half. I ended up getting out, and then, got out and, started working again and stuff like that. And then two of my cousins actually worked for V5. And then they're the ones that got me in with V5 and stuff like that. And then started working for them. And that's when I started doing transit.
That's Frank Monroy, right?
Frank Monroy, yeah, exactly.
Correct.
So I actually got in through my cousins that introduced me to Julio Seria.
Yeah.
He's the one, because he used to kind of like run everything, right? And then or run at least the DJs and things like that. So anyway, he brought me in and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, I'm doing, I'm back and I'm doing, transit, Babaloo's and stuff like that. But honestly, when I got back though, the scene had definitely changed. It really wasn't the same vibe that it was before I joined the military, or even during the military. It definitely had the atmosphere had changed a little bit,
Expand on that, because I just want to make sure that people understand what you mean by it changed.
Well, for me, the party scene was always the party scene. That aspect, was always the same. Where I say it's changed for DJs. Because I still caught the end of it in the 90s, where DJs, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier, where DJs were considered the celebrities, the superstars in Chicago, right?
Okay.
You had Bad Boy Bill, Julian Perez, yourself, Peter, Eddie B. House. You had all these names that were like, people met and were like, oh my God, we were the celebrities there. And I caught a little bit of it towards the end of the 90s, because I was up and coming and stuff like that until, I joined the military. So when I came back, everybody was a DJ. Okay. So, the money was,
but that had a lot to do with the digital age as well.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? When I left, so I was doing vinyl the whole time. When I started doing reggaeton was when I kind of was switching to CDs a little bit. Reggaeton was the reason why I even went to CD, because I was all vinyl too, doing the house music and stuff like that. And then by the time we went to Deja Vu, we were all CD. Hanks was still vinyl. We had our option whether to do vinyl or CDs, whatever it is that we're going to do. And then Deja Vu was just all digital. So that's when it became digital. But by that time, I was already kind of going into the military and phasing myself out. So I didn't see the transition actually take place, right? When I came back, yeah, that transition was full force, right? And, but yeah, like I said, it changed a lot, because a lot of DJs weren't getting paid what they used to. I knew that a lot of DJs that were DJs actually left the industry and started doing something else because of that, right? The atmosphere was very different. I didn't feel, I don't know, I just feel like in the 90s when I first started, it was more organic.
It was.
And then towards the later years, it was too, I don't know, either manufactured or controlled, or it was something, but it wasn't the same vibe anymore. I definitely didn't feel the same passion. Now, instead of me looking forward to go to the club, to go party and have a great time, I was going to work. It was a job. That was the only thing. I still had fun doing it, because once a DJ, always a DJ, right? But it started becoming work. It wasn't the same fun. And then so for me to get
so I'm gonna interject, because I want to make sure that I understand the outlook that you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I think what also changed was the fact of what you can play in the club at that moment when it changed, because you can only play, Daddy Yankee, you can only play, you couldn't be experimental with a lot of music. You only could play the hits. And I'm sure a lot of times that the owners would be like, hey, the floor is not packed. He needs to play like the 5 hits.
And you know what? There was that, but honestly, I never got it from the promoters or the people running the places. I got it more from watching the crowd. The crowd was more into like the hits. You know, you couldn't really bring in a lot of different stuff because they would look at you like, what are you playing?
Exactly.
And
Well,
it
that's
was, right?
that's
It
what
was really the crowd that changed it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really the crowd that changed it. But yeah, but I still had the freedom to play a lot of stuff. Luckily, Frank was a real good dude to me, and a lot, Julio as well, and all the other guys and everything like that. But we still had that slight freedom. But then again, I also, if you were in the big room though, that's where it was a little bit more restricted because you had to play a certain format. I love the smaller room because I had free range to play whatever I wanted to play. I could go from house to freestyle to merengue to salsa to reggaeton, like anything at any moment. So I love that. I did love that aspect of it. But yeah, it did change a lot because a lot of people did want more of the mainstream hits or whatever was popping then. Like you said, like your Daddy Yankees, your Don Omar's and all that stuff, right?
Well, that was when reggaeton became pop, and I remember that. That was the whole, you couldn't, let's be honest with you. I remember Transit, and we're talking specifically of Transit. I remember it was the biggest salsa night in Chicago. And one of my DJs, Frankie J, was like main DJ. Alberto Scandalo, may he rest in peace. It was like that. And then we talk about the stories how reggaeton took over the whole salsa scene and stuff like that. And
it did.
And the crowd changed and stuff like that. So I'm sure that was discouraging as you as a organic DJ. I'm sure that was like, and it was. It changed my outlook as well. That's why I did what I did, because I was doing 720.
The other thing that actually, I don't want to say messed me up, but kind of changed my viewpoint on the club scene was doing the overseas clubs as well. When I DJ'd in Spain and DJ'd in France, I mean, it was that organic. Like people there just wanted to have a good time, party, drink, or whatever. They just want to have a great time and party. Here, when it came down to coming back home, it was more on who's a baller and who's the girl that that's too good to get kind of a deal, right? It was a big image thing, and that was another thing that kind of changed,
the VIP section.
Right. When Baba Lou's first opened, it was a classy place. It was 25 and over. You couldn't get in there unless you were like really dressed up and things like that. I remember that. And then that even changed, right? And it was like now you started seeing more of the younger crowd come in. The music, of course, started changing, right? But they were making, but the DJs weren't really making a lot, and
right.
And again, and so for me, it was just an escape, honestly, for me, just to go to a club, go to work, and get drunk. Honestly, and that's where I was saying that it took me down a very dark road because that's all I knew how to do is go to the club and just get drunk. It got to a depressing stage, losing my mom, losing my dad, getting out the military, adjusting to civilian life again, and then trying to relive that nightlife that I remembered before I joined the military, right?
Right.
It was all that. And so, it took me down a very dark road, like I said. I mean, I would get to the point where I couldn't even remember how I got home. I mean, I know there were a couple of times that I visited your spot and you saw me and I was in my best senses either and stuff like that. And that was the scary part, and which is why I had to leave, nothing against the industry or anything like that, because I think at one point, I shared a lot of memories there. I met a lot of good people there. I mean, I was so blessed that the short time that I had doing what I did a lot and I met a lot. Just in that short period that I did, because honestly, you look at it, it was from 99 to 06 with 4 years taken out because of the military.
Right.
So, so it wasn't really a long stint that I had doing all these places and stuff like that. But in that era though, I met so many people, a lot of my idols, you, Eddie, like I said, Peter, who that's my big brother. To this day, we still keep in touch and everything like that. Every time I come to, like the last time when I was in Chicago back in February, I made a point to see you, to see Lewis, to see Pete and stuff like that, because you guys to me were a lot of the guys that were my mentors and actually checked me in a lot of times on a lot of things that I did. Pete especially, so he was.
So Pete kind of left the industry as well, but he continued with the mobile, and that's kind of
Right,
what.
he's mobile.
And I think that's what I'm gathering from all these talks is that a lot of people did leave the club industry and continue with the mobile because mobile was kind of the alternative to the nightclub aspect of it.
Well, honestly, there was more money in it, man. There was a lot more money in it, especially now.
It was more money individually as far as DJing, because you can charge $2,000, $3,000. Rico Suave, a perfect example. He took it to a whole new level with that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You see him with his pink noise. I mean, honestly, to me, it actually, I'm proud of those guys, man. Honestly, because they took something that we started, and we were all kids at one point. We were all young, not knowing what we were getting ourselves into, and to take that and to go to where they're at today, like Pete, family man, but he does his mobile stuff. He even does the photo booth thing. He does that stuff. You got, like you said, man, Rico Suave that does the sound system stuff and things like that. They took it to a whole new extreme. Catracho, man, who's a real good friend of mine now. The dude's a pastor. So he's following his faith. And thankfully, like I said, for me, I came to my faith also like 9 years ago. And
so that's what I want to find out. Okay, so how did that all happen from going from where you were doing doing the dark side and you transitioned to becoming your faith and stuff like that? What transpired that? What personally did that for you?
It was, it sounds cliche, but I really did have an encounter with God. So for me, it was at Transit, actually. I think it was a birthday or something like that. We were celebrating my birthday, this, that, and the other. They bring a cake out and they're like, make a wish. My wish was more of a prayer, man. I was like, I was done. I was tired. I was like, God, I was like, man, if you could change my life around, I will stop doing all this stuff that I'm doing right now. Send me my wife or take me home to my parents, because I'm going to end up killing myself out here. And not in a sense of being suicidal, but more in the sense of I was just living a very reckless life, and I was just going to do something dumb. So the crazy thing was my birthday's in October, and I ended up meeting a girl from San Diego in January, just a few months later, who is my wife today. Now, at that moment, I didn't know that was her, but something in me hit me saying that it was, right? So I would always ask God for things to prove to me that this was her or this was the route that I was supposed to take, almost like challenging him. Like, okay, God, well, if this is her, then have her call me.
Before this, you weren't a church-going person, right?
No. My mom was towards the end of her life. She really was. She tried to instill that in me. Growing up, we kind of grew up, I would say, I call it part-time Catholics, where we only went on Easter and Christmas, right? That kind of thing. And then
a lot of us are,
Exactly. So then my mom was, before she passed away, she was saved and stuff like that. But that was during the time that I wanted to do the DJ thing. I did the military thing and stuff like that. So my focus really wasn't on that. Funny thing was that even after I met my wife and I ended up, and the whole time, that's a story in itself too. But in a nutshell, I was asking God that certain things had to happen in order for me to click into me to say that this was her, right? So long story short, he did what I asked, and I ended up moving to San Diego to see if things were to flourish and become something more. Eventually, a couple of years later, we got engaged, and the year after that, year and a half after that, we got married. Mind you, I still really wasn't following God. I wasn't walking in my faith yet. You know, I knew God. I believed in God. I just wasn't really walking it out like that. I was like the part-time Christian now, I guess you could say, right? So I had a recording. So I got into producing as well. So in 2003, while I was in the military, I actually picked up producing as well. So that became a big part of my life as well, more so than DJing eventually. As you can see, I'm in my studio now. So that became a big part of my life as well. So anyway, I had a recording studio out here in California, and a lady who was a pastor's wife came up to me and said, you know, God wants you to come back. And I'm looking at her like, come back where? You know, like, I didn't know what she was talking about. She goes, well, I thought she was trying to, like, you know, I thought she was like, you know, like the Jehovah's Witness, like go to your house and be like, hey, Jesus wants you today. I was like, oh my God, here comes another one, right? But no, she goes, look, I don't want to invite you to my church. She's like, if you want to come, you're more than welcome. She's like, but God really wants to use you in a huge way. And I was like, okay, cool. That was it. She went out about her business and stuff like that. I told my buddy about that, and he goes, dude, they're like, you've been seeing a lot of signs about, and she wasn't the first one. She was probably like the third one. And he goes, maybe you should go to church. Maybe there's something there that needs you to go. So this was in 2011. I ended up going to this church, and it was funny because the pastor there was like, literally, like somebody had told him, Sergio's coming, make a sermon about him. Because the whole sermon I felt was wrapped up like this. He was a coach to a life coach to a lot of entertainers and stuff like that. So he was talking about the industry in his sermon. And I'm like sitting there like, yo, like what? So it was funny. So he holds an altar call and sweating, not knowing what this altar call is all about, but I felt like I needed to go. And so I went down, did the altar call, and all of a sudden you get these waterworks, man. I just started bawling, crying and stuff like that. And it wasn't, like, I wasn't in a low point in my life at that time because, mind you, I was touring. I was on the Lowrider magazine circuit with a couple buddies. So I started DJing for a couple artists, and I was following them around and DJing for them. So we would go to Arizona.
Because you were in California, right? That's why you were
right. Yeah, exactly. So in California, I connected with a couple guys and this and that, and we started touring all over California, Arizona, Vegas, and stuff like that. And I'm doing shows. I'm DJing again, doing my stuff, but it was more for not more mixing like at parties. It was more DJing for artists now. Right. So I was doing that stuff. I was their backup guy or whatever. So I felt I wasn't in a bad place, but I definitely always felt a void in all that. So anyway, we did the altar call and got saved and this, that, and the other. And this is where my second retirement comes in. Because I was like, well, God doesn't like hip hop and he doesn't like, DJs and this, that, and the other. So I got to stop doing this stuff. Right. So funny thing is, one of the worship singers came up to me and he goes, now, mind you, at this time, I'm not DJing. I'm not even saying that I'm a producer. I'm not talking about music. I'm just a guy going to church. And he comes up to me and he goes, hey, man, he's like, for some reason, he's like, God spoke to me and told me that he wants me to work with you. He's like, but I don't know how. He's a worship singer, the guy. I was like, I don't know how either. He goes, well, do you do anything in music? And I was like, well, I'm like, I used to DJ and produce. He goes, that's it. He's like, that's how I have to work with you. And I'm like, okay. But I'm like, well, God doesn't really like hip hop, right? That was my whole thought process, right? And then he goes, I was like, well, what do? You sing, right? He's like, yeah, but I rap too. And I was like, God likes rap? I'm like, I'm like trying to figure, I'm a newcomer, right? So I don't know this stuff, right? So he starts putting me onto all these Christian rappers, and I'm listening to these guys. I was like, yo, these guys are pretty awesome, right? So fast forward to now, now I'm part of actually those artists that he introduced me to. Now I DJ for them. So what I do now is I DJ for a lot of like the biggest, like some of the big names in the Christian hip hop genre or whatever. So I tour with them. I'm a part of a couple ministries and we go and do outreaches. We do concerts and shows and stuff like that. And I go along with these brothers and stuff like that and DJ for them. And I still mix, but now I'm doing like Christian and gospel hip hop and stuff like that in those events and stuff.
Well, so just to be fair to everybody, I don't know.
Sorry about that.
the Christian circuit is huge. I mean, and I'm not just talking about the hip hop. I'm talking about the Christian salsa scene. The Christian pop scene. There's a market out there that's huge. I mean, like,
for sure.
I remember in Chicago, I was talking to my friend Carmen Aguilera. She's listening as well. She's into the Christian salsa as well. I remember there was an artist from Chicago that did it big, but she moved out to Miami, and she was doing it big. And I remember only because when Luis Roland Rivera was working over at Disco City, I remember, how you search through the bins and you're looking for music and stuff like that. They had their bin of Christian music, and I was like, hey, I know that girl's name, and she go, oh no, man, she's big out in, and I asked, is there a big market for that? And he says, oh, dude. So the how I even got a confirm about the Christian salsa. We had Tony Vega performing in 2003, I think it was, over Andromedas, and Tony Vega was a Christian. He did his little stint in Christian salsa, and I remember he came back to doing the regular stuff that he was doing. I know at one point he was doing Christian then, and by the way, Tony Vega, our prayers go out to you. I don't know if you heard.
I posted something on that too.
Yeah. So he was performing, and there was a Christian salsa concert with Johnny Rivera and Michael Stewart that was here in Chicago. And it was, I believe it was on Fullerton, and it wasn't a big crowd, maybe they said about 200 people there. But Andromedas, we had almost like 1,500 people in the place for the Tony Vega. And who walks into the concert while Tony's singing is Johnny Rivera and Michael Stewart. And they went on stage with Tony Vega. And obviously they have history that they sang their salsa songs. And I remember this. They got up, and Tony Vega and Johnny Rivera and Michael Stewart are really good at freestyling it. They're just going on. All I remember, I'm at the DJ booth, and Luis Roland Rivera is with me. And I remember they're singing a song. And this salsa song that they're singing, I remember it was Angel Melendez on trumpet and stuff like that. Everybody's sweating because they're playing and this one song for 14 minutes straight because they kept on going. Yeah. And I'm looking at the crowd, and nobody cares that it's 14 minutes long. I mean, people are dancing, they're sweating their ass off. People are like taking pictures and their cameras and stuff like that. And I turned around to Luis and I go, I hope people realize this is history happening right now.
Yeah.
Because it's happening right now. This was all done. But I remember that was one of the things, and the really concert was over. Luis went to DJ, and I remember walking into the back room, and there was Tony and Michael, and they were praying because they were like saying, and I could understand some of the Spanish they were saying, but they were thinking that God, if you're giving them the talent to give it, and I guess they haven't sang together in a while. And I remember Tony always, from that point on, I remember Tony always telling me, thank you, Angelo. Thank you for, bringing us together and stuff like that. And I think they toured a little bit together after that. But I remember that was the whole thing about the Christian networking in the music business.
It's like you said right now, there is a business to it, right? Because it is huge. Even just in the genre of urban music, I mean, you do have your Christian reggaeton music and your Christian hip hop music, and I mean, being
Christian bachata now. I mean, that's
all that stuff. Yeah, and I've gotten introduced to all that stuff. I mean, mind you, all this stuff really happened within the first couple of years when I got saved. Now I've been, in this walk for 9 years now. I see it all. I'm really in tune with what's going on and stuff in that genre and stuff like that. And in ministry, because I DJ, so I like to have all that. Because, like I said again, once a DJ owes a DJ, you never let it go. It's just your outlook or perspectives change. You know what I mean? But I still carry the music with me and everything, and they still use me at these events, and I'm DJing Christian music. But yeah, I do the Christian bachata, Christian, merengue and the reggaeton stuff and the hip hop stuff and all that stuff, and people really dig it.
I mean, like I said, I know there's a big market for it. Um, you know, you being in, and thank you for your hospitality, because every time I go to San Diego, Sergio and I always hook up. We always get together and stuff like that. And I was real honored. I think it was about 3 years ago that I met your mother-in-law, right? That was
Yes.
when she's still
Yeah, she was here. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So I remember
Yeah.
that was I took them out to the vegan restaurants and stuff like
Right.
that.
Well, there's a funny story to that too, because the first time we connected, after a while, you came to San Diego. I didn't know. Well, you weren't completely vegan yet, but I didn't know that you were going that way. And I remember I made these big fat burgers for us.
I remember, yes.
And you only ate a little bit of it, and then you told me, I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, damn, like this guy just told me he's vegetarian. Just give him a big fat burger. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, because I was doing vegetarian. I was doing vegetarian. Maybe that was even longer. I think that was like 40. I don't think I met your mother-in-law then.
No. It was just you, me, and you came to my house. And you met my wife.
Right.
And stuff. Yeah.
And I remember and we were just talking about you and the business and the Christian and aspect and stuff like that. And I know that I got a little hint that you had went that direction because I was talking to Party Boy Pete, and Party Boy Pete also told me that he went in that direction. And
Yeah, he did.
With Luis Molina, he was in constant contact with you guys. And I know that when I told him I was going to San Diego for the first time, that was the first time I went to San Diego. He says, "Hey man, don't forget to look up a Joker out there." And he's out. I go, "He's out there?" And I forgot that you were out there because I go, "Yeah, oh yeah," and because I seen you on Facebook all the time, I was like, "Oh, okay, you know what? I am gonna hit him up because who do I know in San Diego? I didn't know nobody, right?" And that was the year. I think it was hot. Remember, it was so hot.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, when is it not hot here, man?
No,
I mean,
no, it was so hot that the zoo wouldn't even open up because it was like 101, 102 for the animals. They didn't.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember that was the whole point of going to San Diego. And I went by myself. I was by myself, and there was nobody. I was like, and the reason why I was going to San Diego because all my siblings went, but they had the reason because my nephews and nieces, they were all kids. So and then at the time, my grandson, he was only 2 years old. So I wasn't gonna okay, well, I'm not gonna bring him. He's only 2. And then I was like, well, I gotta go out there because I want to see the zoo. Right. I remember that was like, what do you mean the zoo's not open? What do you mean the open zoo? And I think it was, I left that Monday, and that was the first day they opened the zoo. But I remember that was
yeah, we had that heat wave going on. That's right.
Yes,
yeah.
We're at your house.
This is a beautiful city, man. I mean, honestly, when I met my wife, granted, building a life with her, we were debating on who was going to move where, and she was all for Chicago. Don't get me wrong. She loved Chicago. She loved the atmosphere out here and out there and everything. But when I came to San Diego to visit her, I was like, oh, heck no, man. I'm like, you're staying, I'm moving. I thought literally, man, when you could come out the airport and you're already at the beach, I mean, come on. You can't beat that. So,
well, I think for you, and because you were starting anew, and the fact that you had a new scene, that also helped your decision, or should I say it helped the whole confirm that this was going to be part of your lifestyle now.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing about it is when I moved out here, I still wasn't walking the walk that I'm walking today. I was still, when I came out here, I still was looking for clubs to go DJ at, because that's really all I knew as far as trying to, make an income and stuff like that and everything. I wanted to come out here and start something. I even tried to promote a couple venues and this, that, and the other. But same like Chicago, it wasn't fun to me anymore. It just didn't hit anymore. So I just left. It decided, I was like, yep, this is it for me. I'm done with this, right? At least the nightclub scene side of it. I started a mobile business out here, and I do that still here and stuff like that. And then opened up a recording studio, and I do that as well. With the mobile stuff, I play all genres of music. I just make sure that it's all clean, right? And other than that, I mean, still got my recording studio and everything, but I, for the most part, stay really committed to my faith and work only on music that's, gospel based, right? And things like that. So, but that didn't happen to like, man, I moved out here in 2006. So I didn't start walking the walk until 2011. So there was still 4 years that I was still doing my thing and stuff like that.
Well, now that this pandemic hit, and how does it affect you with producing and stuff like that? What has changed for you with this pandemic?
Well, on the plus side with technology, it has slowed down. I don't have people coming in here to record and stuff like that all the time. I do have a select couple that do come in here to record still and stuff like that, but we do all the guidelines, make sure, mask and all that other stuff and things like that. The social distancing, they don't come through my house. You know what I mean? They'll go, there's another access to get into the studio and stuff like that, because, my studio's at home. So there's another access that they come in through and stuff like that. And they come in, they go right into the booth, and then we get to work. More of my jobs now is more mixing and mastering, which a lot of that can be done via email or Dropbox or WeTransfer or however. They'll send me the sessions and I'll do the work, send it back to them, and I get paid. The thing that has stopped is the mobile DJ. That definitely took a standstill and stuff like that. So it's slow, but I mean, I'm a very faithful person. I've been thankful that God has provided throughout these times. Bills are paid, things are good. Still hard because, the kids, with their schooling, doing the distance learning stuff and things like that. My wife is still working. So she goes out there because she was considered a essential worker because she's a pharmacy tech. So she goes out there and stuff like that and works, and I say it takes a sacrifice for the family, and it goes out there and does her thing and stuff like that. But thankfully we're okay. We're good. I definitely can't complain and stuff like that. So
how do you think with this pandemic, and I would think you have a different outlook of it. What do you think is going to happen as far as the industry?
Honestly, I think it's going to see a big boom. People are getting desperate. People want to go out. People want to party. People want to feel that energy again, like you said, it's not my scene anymore, but I sense it. I know the mobile thing is definitely going to pick up because I feel that in the beginning, the clubs are going to hurt a little bit in the beginning, just because people are still going to be kind of sketchy about going out and being surrounded by so many people because clubs do get packed, right? So I think the mobile thing would pick up a lot more. More private parties and stuff like that at homes and things like that. So I think for me, that would probably do good for me, right? Because I still do the mobile stuff as well. But I do see a fluctuation of things going on. And the difference, though, with here in Chicago, though, is here is very outdoorsy as well. So there's a lot of clubs that are outdoor clubs out here. So there's rooftop clubs and stuff like that. So they might do a little bit better because you're out in the open atmosphere. You're not in the confined space. You know what I mean?
Right.
So those might do okay and things like that. But I do feel like there would be a big boom in that industry just on the fact that people are dying to do something right now.
Well, I mean, so like for instance, festivals are canceled all year long here.
Yeah. Here too.
Right. That's what I mean. So the question is that, and I was talking to just people in the industry. We all, the club opening up and the artists, musicians and stuff like that. Where and obviously I'm going to talk to the promoter. Well, are artists going to drop their prices so we can get more people into a place and stuff like that? And then you're only allowed a certain amount of people in a place now, and festivals and stuff like that. So all these artists, it just I'm just wondering how the industry is going to handle that as far as like, let's say, for instance.
Well, let me tell you something real quick. It's funny you say that because on the news today, I saw that there's some artists that they want to bring out here to San Diego, I think, or something like that. They still want to hold that concert. I don't know when it is, but they're trying to figure out a way of doing it in following the guidelines of social distancing. Some of these venues are actually saying that they're thinking about setting like I didn't quite understand, but it's like pod areas, like sections in the venue itself, where they would allow no more than 10 people into that little section, people that know each other and are coming in groups, and they would each have their own section. So mind you, a venue that probably holds 10,000 people will probably only hold 1,200. Or
Right.
maybe even less than that, because the whole social. So they're trying to figure out doing something like that.
So
I don't know. Well, that's gonna work, but
how does the promoter make money then?
that I don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a big, so in order to make money, the venue's got to lower the rent, the artist got to lower, and you're limited to 1,200 people. That's you're set on limitations, and the artist, the artist can't charge what they normally charge for 10,000 people.
But there's got to be a compromise. I mean, there's
Right.
definitely got to be a compromise. Everybody has to be able to meet halfway. Artists, promoters, DJs, anybody in the industry, everybody has to meet somewhere. You can't go inside something with the expectation of thinking you're going to make the same amount of money or charge the same amount of money that you used to. That's not going to happen. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it ever will, because this actually changes things a lot. We're going through this season and we're going to get through it, but the aftermath of this is going to leave a lot of people shook, a lot of people on edge, because it's not going to be gone. The COVID-19 is not going anywhere. It's still going to linger around. It's still going to be here. So people are going to have that, on edge thing about, should I go out? Or am I risking myself going out, to go party because I just want to have a few drinks or whatever the case may be. So I think for the long run, prices and things like that, yeah, it definitely will take a big hit. But there still would be a need for it. So I think it would have to come down with everybody kind of settling and seeing what would benefit everybody, so everybody could at least make something, right? Because at the end of the day, promoters got to eat, artists got to eat, DJs got to eat, we all got to eat somehow, and this is what our bread and butter is, right? So, it's almost like me coming back from DJing in the late 90s when DJs were making some good money to coming back in 2005, and now I had to settle for a lower budget because you got these $50, $100 DJs coming out now.
Right.
So I had to kind of suck up my pride a little bit and be like, okay, well, I can't get what I used to now,
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a very scary transition.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way, because I think, as I tell people, I think this is a reset. That's one of the guys that said it. It's a reset, and I think for us, I don't want to. I guess us original smart business people, smart, just knowing that this is going to be how, I think we have to just be cautious. And I keep saying this cautiousness part, because I think that's the only way you can handle it, because you want to care about your community. You have a community, you're responsible. And, I think there's the extreme that somebody says, "Oh, I won't go out anymore." Nah, that's not what's going to happen. People are still going to, in a perfect world, everybody stay home. In a perfect world, everybody isn't suffering and not eating, but we all have to work and we all have to make money.
And you know what? And honestly, being stuck at home is not a perfect world. We need to go out,
Right.
I mean, we need to be out there. I mean, honestly,
for our minds.
yeah, well, I mean, even our health. I mean, think about it. You build your immune system, but being out and about in the world and being or surrounded by all these different atmospheres and all this different stuff and people and all this other stuff. That's how you build your immune system. Being stuck at home, your immune system really is deteriorating. You know what I mean? Because you're not getting exposed to the sun as much. I mean, thankfully I'm in San Diego, so I just go to my backyard and I'll get all the sun I need. But
hey, don't make us jealous, okay?
I'm just saying. But no, but seriously, you know what I mean? So So, so that's going to be a big issue too, because you're going to have people coming out that've been stuck at home all day, and they're going to end up getting sick because they're not used to this stuff anymore. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, almost like, man, like, you don't know where you're right or wrong in the whole thing, right? But I'll say one thing, personally speaking, and me knowing you for as many years as I've known you, you've always been very innovative. You've always come up with, the new ideas, the new thing and stuff like that. And I think that's what has made you very successful in what you do. On your aspect, I think you'd figure it out and you'd still be all right, man. Personally speaking, honestly.
Here's a perfect example. What I'm doing with this is a perfect example of being innovative. I'll tell you the story. I'll tell everybody a story about how this all became to be. There's other things that I'm doing. This is just a small factor. I already have the game plan. Trust me, I have the game plan. And,
I bet you do.
I have the game plan, and I'll let everybody know and stuff like that. But there's going to be about 25 more steps. This is step 2 that I'm taking at this point with everything that I'm doing here. And you're right. And I think that's one of the things that has helped me is that I've always been that guy that says, okay, you know what? I look at what you did. You went totally into the Christian aspect of it, but you still love your music. And the fact that you had heard that, what do you mean? God likes hip hop? I mean, like it was like you, and your mindset was like, wait a minute, I thought that was not allowed per se. And then
the devil's music, right?
Yeah, and then, but you found the compromise per se, or that you can still love music and still celebrate your faith. And, I think CD card is full, it says for you.
Yeah, I think I left my video card in the camera thing over here. Hold on, give me a second here. But it shouldn't go off of that.
We can still hear you, just to let you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the video.
I'm asking you to start video on that, but in case it's 9 o'clock exactly. So ironically, it's the end of the show. There you go. Okay, you're cool.
Yeah.
So there it is. So what I was going to tell you is that you found a great compromise with what you're doing, what you love to do, and at the same time keeping your faith. And I think that's what's going to happen for just anybody that's in this industry. We're going to have to figure out the compromise of what we love to do, and at the same time keeping our faith in what we're doing per se.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And again, like I said, I mean, and I'm grateful, and that I'm at where I'm at today. I mean, things haven't been easy either. It's not like I saw the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. I mean, I still have my struggles and my battles and stuff like that. It's just, but I am definitely happy. At times I do reminisce every time that you come into town or anybody comes in town from Chicago, man. I love it because it gives me a little taste of home. You know what I mean? Reminiscing about those days and stuff like that. Those are memories, man, that I definitely do cherish, and I wouldn't trade it at all. If I had to go back and do it again, I probably would do every single little bit of it. Maybe hold back on the drinking a little bit, but other than that,
but you still have a drink. You still have a drink still. It's not like you just know how to.
Well, I don't get drunk anymore. Let's put it that way.
Right. But that's I think that's and just a little off topic of the music aspect. But I think that's what kind of people don't understand when somebody becomes Christian, like they become like, that's it. No, nothing ever.
No. It's all dependent on you, honestly. Granted, getting drunk is a sin, right? But the aspect of drinking or actually having a drink, no, it's nothing wrong. Like I'll have a glass of wine with my wife when we have a nice dinner, stuff like that. Or, I just want to relax, watch a sports game. Maybe I'll have a beer, things like that. But I'm not over here downing a 6-pack or 12-pack trying to get trash, right? So there's little things like that. But but I wouldn't say, okay, you're a Christian, go out there and drink, not a thing like that. You know yourself, basically. You know how far you can take it. You know how much you can handle. And my faith is what really keeps me diligent into not crossing that line,
So speaking of faith, so when you go to a Padres game, what are you wearing? Okay.
Die-hard Cubs fan, man.
Okay.
I used to go DJ at Sluggers with Al doing like this and envying those guys over there on Thursday nights, man. I'm like, I'm true to Wrigleyville, man. So
Okay, that's what I was. That's what I was. So that's what I want to make sure to read.
you'll see me here with my Bulls hat, my Bears hats, and my Cubs hats, man, all the time, man.
Okay,
Even
good.
my kids, born in San Diego, hardcore Cubs fans, man. I gotta train them right, man. I gotta train them right.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So, and I'm sure you watched The Last Dance. You had that was you got to be watching that.
Dude. Yeah, yeah. That even brings back memories, man, because I remember being in Chicago through all that whole era and everything was going on, man.
Well, it's funny because now I've been compared this show to like The Last Dance or something. Somebody compared it like, oh, this show's like The Last Dance or something like that.
I believe it.
And it was funny to me because I'm like, wait. I had this show first before they even had The Last Dance. So I didn't come up with this concept because of The Last
But granted,
Dance.
they've been filming since the 90s, so I'm just saying.
No, but I'm talking about the concept of the show.
Exactly. No, and it is. I definitely agree with that, man, because, like I said, I've been following the show and I've been seeing the guys that have come on here. And for me, it takes me back. You had, like Al on here. You had a couple other guys that are good friends of mine. You had, Juan over here. You had, who else did you have that I was following through and stuff like that? But a lot of the guys, man, Luis, Roland Rivera. I mean, I DJed a few places with him as well, all those guys. And I look back and I'm like, man, Play, another good brother and stuff like that. All those guys, these are guys that I was there with them, So a lot of the stories that they shared, I was like, I remember that, I remember that too, So it's pretty cool. And I thank you, man. I'm honored and blessed that, you invited me on as well. Considering I just felt personally, I was like, well, I did my thing in Chicago, but it was only for a short time. Right. But like I said, I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I got to meet a lot of great people throughout that time. And a lot of them are still, to me, all the DJs that I've met and stuff like that, to me, it's a brotherhood, whether I was around for, 20 years or just 10 years or whatever, it's a brotherhood. And, like you said, when you come into town, Pedro, let's hook up, let's see each other, I go from Chicago, same thing, call you up, Lewis, Peter, all you guys up, Eddie, all you guys, just because it's for me, you guys are family, so right. Definitely, and I thank you again for bringing me on, man.
All right. Well, that's it for Sergio or DJ Joker. So, all right. Thank you. So I appreciate it very much, guys. Don't forget, we do this every day. If you haven't heard, I also have a big special 5 o'clock Saturday show with Al Cisneros from Janelle. So that's in his history in itself. So I mean but that's one of the icons and stuff like that. I just communicated with Harv Roman as well today, so he's going to be on my show as well. Nice. Then I have also Benji Espinosa, one of the, these are guys that have been in the industry and in the dance industry and as you call it, house music and stuff like that. These guys are iconic to what it is. So, all right, don't go anywhere. And I'm going to sign off here. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Sergio. Appreciate it.
Thank you, bro. See you soon.